Why is it that you find that people have a hard time understanding what it is they actually want?
Well, it comes down to your actual soul and your consciousness and who you want to be versus putting on a mask and trying to please everyone else in your life. And you grow up and your parents tell you to be one way. That may not be who you want to be, right? But you're programmed. And then you get to high school and then you're trying to fit in. Then college, you're trying to fit in. You basically have on all these different ways to try and please everyone else. And in society, we're taught to be nice to everyone and take care of everyone and all this stuff. But I think we get lost for our own visions because we're trying to do everything for everyone else. And then you have a family and then your parents get sick. There's all these moving parts in life. So I don't think people spend enough time taking time to think what's important to them because there's so much going on and you're always on your phone, social media, your work, the stress. When do you actually have time to just decompress and be? And I think that's why it starts from your childhood and then you get into your adulthood and then it just continues on.
I I love that, man. I mean, we're going right into the deep end. You're talking about like it's a manifestation of like your soul and the mask that we put on. But Bill, it that's totally true, though, right? The golden rule: do unto others as you'd want to be done unto yourself. I mean, is in essence a construct of that. Our grading systems through like school are constructs of like this is what it means to be a good student. I'm curious, how do you find the quantification, good, bad?
Yeah. I mean, I think Ben, a lot of it is just again, when you go back down to how society needs you to be, if you don't get straight A's, you're not smart. If you don't get, you know, perfect scores on things, you're not smart. And it's just not true. I have friends who are terrible, terrible students in school, and they run $50 million companies and they manage their assets for that. It, and I grew up with them since fifth grade. One of them's a perfect example. They run a $50+ million scrapyard a year. But the guy didn't know shit about school, didn't care. It's because you're bored out of your mind. I don't think we have enough freedoms to just be and to be creative when you have to memorize letters and spelling and all this other stuff in school. I mean, it's very rudimentary, but it's just boring for a lot of people. It was boring for me. I did well, but it was boring. How about you? I mean, was school boring for you?
Yeah, yes, and like no. I mean, it was honestly like a fruit punch where there's learnings that like you couldn't necessarily get a grade sheet on, which is like how do you interact and how do you actually get people organized to like a similar vision. But the thing I found in school, so I graduated with a 2.98 GPA, which for a long time really there was a level of identity being like, well, I'm just not a good student. I'm just like I'm not a good student, um but part of it was that I would do really well in tests, and then I would basically like get all this homework, and I'm going, well, like why would I do this homework when I clearly know the content? Um, my wife and I, we have this ongoing internal debate because she was literally like she was what school is made for. Like she was a system structure follower builder, and so she crushed it. I mean, if you added my GPA together, that's what hers was. and but I found it constraining. That's the word that when I think back, even at the time, I could not. Now, if you told me to articulate it that way while I was in high school, Bill, I would never be able to say it. But in retrospect, I felt it constraining. I felt it was trying to conform me, and I can't remember when, but I just remember a certain point that, and it was maybe when I got like a C minus, like on in like like in a semester on like on a whole bunch of things that I was like, I don't know if it was this conscious, and I'm curious, Bill, from your experience, but I just remember thinking, I'm not going to let this define who I am. And I remember thinking, I was like, grades are to help smart people feel even smarter. To feel, And so, I don't know how about you? I mean,
I would study for stuff the night before or the day of and pass a test. I just I never read a full book in school until 8th grade when it was Harry Potter, and the only reason is because we read it in class. I just didn't have to do that. I just was able to pay attention. And then when I got to college, I played soccer at a small Division II school, but I had maybe 3 or 4 friends who are in all my same classes all 4 years, like kind of like same track. I didn't buy books the remaining 7 semesters. So I'm like, why am I gonna spend $1,500 and get $300 back or $100 back? So that's the kind of student I was. I was like, I'll figure it out. That's always my attitude. There's always a solution. Things will be okay. We'll figure it out. But I didn't even buy my books besides the accounting ledgers because we had to do them manually. I was just like, I didn't think that was going to define my future. I knew I had to get good grades because I knew I wanted to play soccer in college, but it wasn't my everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I feel like I'm speaking to my doppelganger. It's yeah, except I have hair. It's but because even to this day, um, like to your point about reading, is that I would actually read the book while I was actually in class, and I get caught up, and my participation, grade was like through the roof. And you would have thought I had read it, but I think the thing that when I think about the going back to the wanting what it is that like you want, I think some of it comes from the fact of struggling. And I think that what I'm hearing from you, and I'm curious, Bill, from you, that I think that I struggled a lot in in school, which created the opportunity for me to be forced to actually think about like, well, am I smart or am I not smart? Am I like what are the other areas and flow to the other areas, which for me was athletics. I went to D3 college to play football and run track, and quite frankly, I think that's the only reason why they actually accepted me into the college. And so it was a gateway. But I'm curious, in you, from what you see, do you think that if you're just always successful, that you're going to have more clarity on what it is you want, or do you think that my sort of assertion that like it's in the struggle is actually where you're forced to confront the real you? Not to sound like Eminem.
Yeah,
Will the
yeah. I think it's actually a little bit different. I'm going to take this a whole different route. I mean, when you have a successful entrepreneur who's done multiple companies or multiple exits, it depends on how much that person's chasing versus being happy where they're at right now. Because happiness is fleeting. Yep, until I get the next toy or the next house or the next XYZ or the next plane, right? Are you happy with where you're at now? And that's your litmus test. Like, if nothing else happened, are you happy with where you're at now? And that's sort of like the crux of it all, because a lot of the entrepreneurs who we know, a lot of ego, a lot of chasing, they may or may not know if they're actually happy with where they're at because they're always on the treadmill, the next thing. And that's how we're geared to be, especially as entrepreneurs. We got to do the next thing. And I don't think people take time to realize where they're at right now and get their footing underneath them. That's my answer to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. In the conversations that having with like entrepreneurs, there's this idea of like striving and ambition, right? And I think that oftentimes both of those words can kind of come off as kind of dirty, right? Like, why are you striving for this, and why like ambition and having ambition. But one of the things you just said, Bill, I think that's really interesting. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I heard someone say once that entrepreneurs often are going for this next thing because they're trying to run from something.
Oh, yeah. That's like when Dan says you're bored. It's like, what are you avoiding? What are you not doing? Like, we've heard Dan say that a million times. And it's like, what are you avoiding? But that may not be the case. It's just you may be getting that realignment in your life where it's not meant to fit. You may need to let something go. Something's not working.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bill? I mean, I'm curious from your own experience. What are things that have had to die, like like to die from the vine for you to be able to grow? That would have, but by most other people's purposes, would have said like, "I can't believe you're letting that die."
Yeah, I think everyone else's expectations. I think the easiest one are just who you're spending your time with. It's probably not the easiest one because it's difficult because you're stuck in that same construct and it's easy. It's like I read something the other day that said, scientists reported that people stay in like bad relationships or like alcoholism or different abusive situations for their life and don't change because it's easier not to change. So it's easier for people to stay in the bad situation than, taking the thorn out of your foot and walking easier. It's just easier. It's because your brain is wired to stay in a safe place. And that's, safe for you. And if we can push past that, I think that's where the ambition needs to be. It's not in the things, it's not in the stuff. They're fun, right? But when you die, none of that's going to matter. But you got to experience it too, right? There's that balance, and that's something that I've been struggling with. Like I really like watches, but I'm like, what's enough? Do I need all this stuff? Is this stupid? So I think everyone has that. You get to a point where I knew someone said, well, when you make $1 million, go get that watch. And that was always my construct. And I did it and I got it. And I'm like, this is stupid. It was pure ego. It's like, I don't need this. This doesn't define who I am. Have you ever had something like that? Like someone said something to you 20 years ago. And you're like, I finally did it. I was like, what's the point of this? That's where I'm at in my life. I just turned 40, man. I'm like trying to let go of stuff that doesn't matter. And
Yeah. It's that's a interesting question. Um, I mean, I when I look back at the trail of by destruction, you know, I have plenty of stuff where I bought it, not necessarily because I was like, oh, I leaned into that sort of emotional sort of response of like, oh, hey, you know what? Like by the way, we see this in eating, right? Yeah, yeah, because you're bored, you're eating, you eat. I think the things that I struggled with were it was actually the thing that I actually didn't have, and that was, I left halfway through my junior year in college, and I probably, no, I didn't probably, I struggled with feeling enough, probably for a good 12 years afterwards. Because I felt like that was the thing that like I needed to have to be like validated. Like, you know what? Like I have arrived. Like I'm actually like having to prove something. And then it was when it was really in terms of with Jenna when she and I got together and she was like, "Do you know how many people who have been incredibly successful who have never even actually even gone to college? Probably people have dropped out." And it was the first time I actually was like, I'd been holding on to this idea, like, this, hey, when I get to million, and it was the opposite side, but it was like it was ego, right? Of being like, well, I have to have this for me to be like worthy enough. And
but where did that come from? Where did that come from though? Because go deeper on that. Who put that in your brain or in your body? And because it wasn't you.
no, I think that it was, probably even going back, it's like there was zero like I was going to college. It wasn't like even growing up. It wasn't like if I go to college. It was like when I go to college. And I think then having like successful people in like my family, they all went to college. My sister went to college, um, every single person that I knew that was in like my like not even one layer deep, two layers, three, four, five layers deep, all were going to college. And then even in high school, I mean, I remember, which is now sort of kind of funny because, at the time it was like tech schools. You were sort of like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you go to tech school? And now I look back and now I look at going like, wait, you can go to tech school, be out of school in 2 years and be making, and oh, by the way, oftentimes jobs now that like they send you to tech school, they actually pay you. You actually go to school while you're working. You don't even have any debt. And by the way, you got paid 2 times more than someone graduating from with a 4 or 5 year degree is making now. And you just go, it's kind of, I find it interesting, but I think a lot of it was that. And then I think oftentimes when I came into the industry, again, I started off in the financial services industry with my OG company, is that I'm this guy who didn't even like graduate. I barely just had turned 21 when I started in the industry. And inevitably, people's first question they'd ask me, where'd you go to school? As like a qualifying factor. And so I think that led to it. It was like, and I think there was like some like feeling of less than, like I'm not part of that group. I'm not part of that club, that has a degree, and therefore I don't actually belong in the club. And this is all also part, which is interesting. I had that going on, Bill, but then at the same time when I started, and you can probably appreciate this, like in the industry, financial service industry, there's a lot of people who wear suits and ties. And again, I'm not against anyone who wants to wear a suit and tie, but so often it's because of like this expectation, like having a degree, like if you wear a suit and tie, therefore then you must be successful, therefore you must be like smarter. So I'm having that underlying build going at the same time of like this sort of imposter syndrome going because I don't have this degree. But at the same time, I'm also going, I was like, after the first year, I was kind of like, fuck this noise. Like, if you care more about what I'm wearing, then you're not paying attention to the most important asset that you really should care about, which is what's between my ears. And so I started wearing like jeans. I started wearing, just honestly, like stuff that like made me like approachable. I grew a beard because I remember someone told me like, what a beard does, it makes you like less trustworthy. Anyways, all these different things. And you're like, wait, no hair up top. We got a beard. But so I find that interesting as we're talking about this. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, when I started in the financial services industry in 2008, I was 22, going on 23, took all the tests. And like, I wore a suit almost every day because I wanted to look professional. Like I spent money on suits to make myself look as professional as possible, even though I was 22, 23. And I continued to do that for years and years and years, just because that's what I think that was part of the value prop is present yourself well. If you present yourself well, if your car is clean, if your clothes are pressed, things like that. And then when I started my company in 2014, that all changed. Like, I don't need to do this. It's just part of the masks and the expectations, but we're taught to do these things. I mean, I know someone, probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, um, like who's part of the old school, like Rockefeller family, like one of the lineage family members. And, the system was set up to put people in debt, keep people sick, all these assets, all the things that we're so aware of now, but 40 years ago, that's sort of the construct. You have to go to college to get a good job. That's society talking, and we know that's not true. So when you actually go deep, it's just how society has raised us. Get good grades, be polite, be a good person, all this stuff. I think you should be a good person, but you got to take into consideration what lights you up. You have to put yourself out there to enjoy your life and do the things you want to do. And I think a lot of people are too caught up in pleasing everyone else. And that's why people have a lot of resentment. I think that's why divorce happens. I think that's why people get sick. It's they have all this trauma built up inside of them and they never let it go. They never let go. And when you don't let go, that stays in your body. It's bad energy.
Yeah, Bill, when you think back through your journey, because I think you and I have had some similarities here, but when you think about the masks that were put upon you that you've realized, like what were some of like the aha moments where you're like, you've been living, I hate to even say it's not a lie, but for lack of better words, like that you've been living um this alternative narrative that actually was not actually the real. It's like having AI write all of your like LinkedIn posts versus like you actually writing it and then having AI go back in for grammatical, right? Like there's a big difference between those two.
Totally, totally. It goes back to just for myself, the childhood of just trying to be the problem solver in our family when things were not going well with my parents or when they had money problems or when there was fights. I was the one trying to like stop it, right? Like change the energy, change the tension because I couldn't stand it. And that led me to just people pleasing, saying yes to everything and just not following my conscience. I didn't even know what that was 20 years ago, but now I'm very aware of it. And, but just getting to the point where, as Dan says, no is a sentence. You don't have to say yes to everything. But really, with doing the internal work is realizing that it all stemmed from how we were raised and what our childhood was like in our household and the family problems that we had.
Yeah. How did that manifest in like what was your like come to Jesus sort of moment where you were like, I need to be aware of consciousness, my especially my own. Like what was the point? What was the point where you were like, okay, this is a thing, and I've been neglecting it for the previous 20 years.
Um, Isabel Tierney told me about the surrender experiment from Michael Singer. And after I read that, I was like, holy shit. Whoa. And then I started meditating and just really going down the path to figuring yourself out. And I realized that for the past 40 years, it's been like, go, 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 go. Let's achieve, let's do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what's the point of this? Like, what makes sense for me and my family? That's what was my reading the book and just listening to that book was like, holy cow. And then more of them and then other books and just going down that path of what is manifestation? Like your thoughts affect everything. I've gotten to the point where your thoughts are going to dictate your life. And there's no better truth than that in life than just realizing what your thoughts are and how it affects your life.
Yeah, the Ben Hardy wrote in the Be Your Future Self Now that all physical creation is preceded by mental creation. So to your point, so I'm imagining someone's listening to you and I having this conversation right now, and I'm imagining they're doing like a whether a conscious or subconscious internal audit. Why do you feel that this is not something that is more mainstream?
It's easier not to change. It's easier to not speak your mind and not upset your spouse or your boss or whomever. Most people hold on to things because we don't know how to let it go. I mean, that's so true. You've done it. I've done it. We've all done it. But that's where the traumas get stored in your heart and in your body. It's just negative energy. Um, and I don't think people really want to change a lot of the times. If you really
Say more
want
about
to, you'll do it.
yeah, say more. Why don't they want? I mean, they have like I mean, think about we the amount of money that's put into Powerball is a leading indicator. If you want to talk about a benchmark of people like wanting, well, when it's $1.7 billion or $1.5 billion, that tells you that there's a lot of people who want something on the other side or the perception of what they think that $1.3 billion will be. But why do you feel that people will maybe have the like I call it the fogged want, but actually don't really want to change?
Yeah. Well, the people who play the Powerball are the people who know they're not going to have it.
Mm.
They already know they're not going to have it because if they knew they were going to have it, they wouldn't worry about playing the Powerball.
So again, going back to someone who's sitting here listening to this, doing this internal audit, well, the reason why I asked you that question, and that was an excellent answer, in the fact of just to help them give the context, and also not to alleviate some of like maybe the shame spiral, because I think that's probably the most insidious thing that happens is you start to realize, oh, maybe that is true. I also think shame keeps us from actually being able to tell the truth. But what are the things that you feel like in your own exploration has allowed you to openly audit and accept the truths about your past, your present, and maybe how you viewed the future?
Whew. From a past standpoint, completely letting go and forgiving yourself and everyone else who's ever wronged you is the key there. Just let go. Just say, you know what? I love you. I appreciate you. Because then you're not letting them hold a piece of you. Whether it's a bad business partner, like we've had apps get screwed up, like for my tech company. I forgive them. I've moved past that. I held a lot of anger for like 2 years on that. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm wasting time and energy. So you forgive and love everyone. You know, I had to forgive my dad for the thing, how he acted when we were children and things like that, and his drinking problems and all. Like I've had to, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to get over, but forgave him, and let that go. And then it frees you up. It opens your heart back up versus you being closed off. And from a present standpoint, that's all we have. It's like you and I talking right now. Nothing else matters. Like we're right here. But most people are living in the future, so they're stressed, or they're living in the past and they're just, scientists say that's where depression comes from, which is vaguely true because you're holding on to something that's, you know, already done. You have to get past that. So from my own personal standpoint, like I write down like on my desk right here, I have the car I want, right? And I can go get it. But like you have to be in this moment now. And in order for things to work out for you, this is the key, really the key, is you have to put yourself in the place of knowing it's already happened. I already know I'm healthy. I already know I'm wealthy. I already know I have X. I already know this is done. Whatever's troubling you, when you say, I already know it's done, you're putting yourself in a completely different position where it alleviates that stress.
Yeah. Bill, I love that. And I'm obviously a huge subscriber to that sort of mindset. But I'm imagining people who are listening to this are going, well, that's really good, right? I remember when The Secret came out, like it was like it caused a ruckus. I mean, because it challenged so many different things. Like, wait, all you have to do is just ask for it, and then it's like, and then there's the constructs and constraints of or constraints of from like religion. Because I remember being like, man, if I just think that I can like want it and I can actually just know it and like actually be there. And that, man, I am, that's like sacrilegious. Like I remember like that was like a really, really big thing. So if I'm listening to this and I'm going, well, Bill, that's really, really good for you to say that. But how do I go from being like, I know it to actually, because I think there's a difference between know it and actually you wholeheartedly believe it. And so,
Whew. Great question. If you don't wholeheartedly believe it, it's not going to happen. And that's just trusting in the faith or the universe or God or Allah or whatever you subscribe to, right? It's letting go of, your brain is trying to solve all your problems. You have that voice in your head that's always trying to say, well, do this and do that. And if you do this, you can get that. And if you do this, blah, 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 blah. It goes back and forth, right? But going back to your question, if you know and if you truly believe, they're one and the same. And if you don't believe, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people is just having the faith. If you want money, if you're thinking about how you lack money every day, it's not going to come to you. It's just not going to come because you're putting more lack in your life. If you're looking for someone, if you keep saying, I'm lonely or I want someone to take care of me, you're going to get more of it because you're focusing your attention on the negative versus if you do it on the flip side, I know I'm taken care of, or I know I'm loved, or I know I have wealth. And you live in that knowing, that's when the magic happens. It's flipping of the script because you can work your butt off all your life and you can make a good living. Right? There's people who we know who have probably done that, who may be billionaires, maybe have hundreds of millions of dollars, but they may not feel like it's enough. And they're still pushing because there's something inside them that they haven't figured out yet that's causing them to continuously push, 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 push when you need to know when to put your foot on the brake and put your foot on the gas. That's really the sweet spot in life.
Bill, I want to go back and, if it's all right, and talk a little bit about something that I think that you hit on that I think is, I like the quote is, I think like to forgive is divine. Like is the next forgiveness is next to godliness. And I want to talk a little bit more if you're willing to talk about your dad, right? Just because in generalities, like I think one of the most complex relationships that no one really wants to talk about until they maybe you're in your 30s and 40s, and then you're dealing with the cleanup aisle, is the relationship between children and parents. But so I want to use that as the conduit to this bigger conversation around like forgiveness, because you said something even earlier than that, being like we all hold on to things. Like I mean, and I think the more that we care about either that person or the thing, then the more we actually hang on to it. Can you talk a little bit more about your experiences? Because I have to imagine whatever you went through with your dad, like there was some shit that went down that is obviously hung on with you. But how do you actually put yourself in that position and to actually have forgiveness?
Yeah, God forbid. This is going to be a fun one. Um, I mean, I vividly remember being 8 years old, knowing that my dad lost his job again. This is like a habitual thing just because of the drinking problems. And then everything fell on my mom's shoulders. Like there was times where she had to work 2 jobs just to support the family. Like to keep a roof over our head. There was multiple times during our childhood where I remember them fighting. We lived in like a 1,200 square foot ranch, no basement house, right? Suburbs of Chicago. And it was great. Don't get me wrong. Like the neighborhood was great. It was with loving people around us. But, when you don't know if you're going to have a roof over your head, that's why I went into financial services to selfishly figure out things for myself so that I never ended up like them because I knew I was going to have a family one day. So I had the foresight young, I need to figure this out because I don't want to end up like this when I was 8. I'm a futurist for a strength finder for top 5. So I think that's Sean. But, I saw the stress that caused on my mom, and she got cancer and passed away a couple years ago. And she held on to all that stress. She brunt the bear, and that's what happened. That's what took her, is all the stress and all the. So as I saw that happening, and as I'm going through my own personal stuff of like letting things go and reading these books, and there was another group that I was a part of, like Justin Breen's, one of his old companies, like the Brepic Network. It was like purely about, spirituality. And it's something that I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in church and all this stuff. I still don't believe in the whole aspect of church. I think a lot of that is a mask as well to keep you confined. I think if you go inwards, that's where the divineness happens. I don't think it's like, I mean, why doesn't everyone have the same one? Why are there 17 different or like a million different, it's all been used to almost manipulate people in a way. Forgive me for saying that. For a lot of people, they're going to be like, what? But it's just the truth. I mean, we're all divine inside of us. We all have that that nature of knowing, and that's our consciousness, and that's our intuition. I mean, Daniel White will tell you, follow your intuition, ask God, is this right for me? But you could ask whomever, universe, spirit angels, and letting go of all this stuff has just been so freeing because now I feel like I don't have to be crazy all the time. I don't need to solve everyone's problems. I don't need to, just react, which a lot of us do, especially in this high performing world. I mean, if you would take an activity inventory of your emotions, not of what you're doing every day, but like your thinking in here, pretend it was your roommate. Would you want to stay with your roommate? Would you want to get the hell away from them? That's all you need to do. You have a roommate up here. And are they helping you or hurting you?
The more that I've been coaching entrepreneurs, the more that I realize that everything is an energy game. And it's all about energy production, it's about energy harvesting, it's about energy disbursement, it's about energy focusing. You think of like a magnifying glass, right? Most people look at it, oh, I can make things look like closer. But if you put that magnifying glass into like the correct light with the sun, it now becomes same tool. Now becomes an actual like a laser of sorts, right? And to your point, the hanging on and reactive. I think that this is probably. I know that people want to talk about that AI is the next productivity gain, the next breakthrough. But I think actually what you're talking about is actually the largest breakthrough that could probably happen within human beings is the understanding that emotional activity inventory of how have I been, how am I being, and how am I, and who am I like going to become if I continue on. I mean, you talk about your dad, he has these cycles, right? And a lot of I feel like our reactions and emotions and things that we hang on to are cyclical in nature. And some of them, I believe, actually weren't even necessarily even created by us. They were actually created by like our forebears.
Totally. Oh my God, yes. Without a doubt, yes.
I mean, you think of genetic strains as just like, oh, do you have brown hair? Do you have blue eyes? Do you have brown eyes? And I think that I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think that uh, things that we hang on to aren't stored there.
And people talk about past lives, and that's really going down the rabbit hole. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I don't know if I ever will. But I mean, some people think you hold traumas from, 5 lives ago. And I don't even know. I haven't even given that a ton of time yet. But like, why don't you just want to be happy now? The stuff doesn't make you happy. The achievements don't make you happy because they're fleeting. They're fleeting. It's just a chasing game. The happiness is here. It's now. And in the coach room, spent 9 years there. Like, I love Dan and Babs, like incredible human beings, and all the coaches. Like, if you can figure out your inner peace, everything else will figure itself out. The external doesn't work.
Yeah. Recently, Dan Sullivan had released this sort of concept of, he goes, the difference between, and I'm paraphrasing in terms, I'm actually putting my spin in what it is basically the difference between like good, great, and exceptional is that like good and great are always trying to be there. And so what happens when you're here and you're always trying to be there is that you're left with a massive gap today. Like, cause you feel like you're lacking. And one of the things that he had said, he goes, stop trying to be there. He goes, be here.
Mm.
Stop trying to be there. Start like, he goes, because what's more powerful, trying to be there and like putting all the energy just trying to be there, or being here and knowing that your here was actually at one point in your life, you're there. And he goes, if you just actually just be here and expand from here, he goes, that's so much more exponential because then you're no longer having to wait to be happy.
You hit the nail on the head.
I thought that was incredible because you see it in yourself in like different like in your different identities, you see it in the people around you, you see it on social media, you see it on the news, you see it in politics specifically. Um and I think that when you look at it through the construct and I think the lens of so many people are trying to be there rather than just be here, that it's sort of they miss the beauty.
Yeah. Like Ferris Bueller said, sometimes you gotta stop and smell the flowers, right? Or whatever he said, you know? Um, it's a great Chicago movie. If people were actually to understand their consciousness and just being present, like consumerism, this like spending, it would break the system because you realize you don't need all this stuff. The whole system would change. And I took all the social media off my phone and I've never felt calmer in my life.
that's that's so awesome.
Like something so little like that. Just press delete because it's controlling a lot of people and what they do and their thoughts.
You know, you just cued something in me. I think it was early 90s. Um, we finally got uh, a voicemail in our house, but not like the one that was on the phone. It was actually the one that you connected to your phone and it had the little, well, first big tapes, and then you were able to get the small little mini tapes. And I remember, my dad doesn't remember this, but I remember him saying, just being at the dinner table and being really what I remember, again, what you remember when you're, you know, in your 7, 8 years old versus actually reality. It might be different, but I just remember him being really upset and basically saying like he's like, "This is the death of community." And what's interesting that just hit me, Bill, now as I was listening to you talk about how you've never felt more calmer by taking all of the social media, which the whole compelling offer of social media is that you're more connected than ever.
Is not true. You're more stressed than ever.
Yeah, when I think you are more connected, but you're more connected into the FOMO network of because only people only post. Now, it'd be true, you are more connected, but if everyone started posting like in terms of the realness and consciousness, actually, if you were connected to people's consciousness, I think that might be true. But I find that really interesting that this is literally I just had this aha that going back, that's actually what my dad was actually saying
Mm.
way back then as an early leading indicator of because I remember him being like he's like if someone really wants to talk to me, they'll either write me a letter with their thoughts and or they will actually come to my house and actually have a conversation with me.
That's pretty true about social media too. I mean, if you're really connected with someone, you can pick up the phone and call them, or you can go see them, or do a FaceTime. I mean, I would argue the fact that how many people on your social media are you actually connected to?
My guess is my answer is probably like everyone else's uh, is that they are all echoes of connections of like your past experience. You were in a part of a group for a period of time and you shared like that patch of earth or that moment or that memory or that experience for that time period. And I think as human beings, I don't know about you, but like I find myself to be a relatively incredibly nostalgic person.
Oof. Same, same, same.
And being aware that like when you're having a moment, when I'm saying like a moment, like where it's incredible. And I find myself with our kids, with my spouse, having moments in business where it just feels like it's a tailwind and you're on a bike and it's like you have no chain on. It's like, but you're going 25 miles an hour and you're like, how is this possible? Of just being really cognizant that this is a moment that maybe I'll have similar feelings, but I will never, ever live this moment ever again. And that there's some so incredible beauty and at the same time incredible amount of like almost sadness in the fact of just knowing that this is not like this is a finite moment.
It's almost like at the end of F1 when Brad Pitt finally hits his like God mode and he's flying it's like right at the end of the movie, that's exactly what you're talking about. Doesn't happen all the time.
No. But when it does, it's incredible.
Hmm. But you got to be present to experience that.
Yeah, but when you think about like yourself, and obviously you built technology to help people be more into I really this is what you've built in through the guise of an actual money platform is a guise towards consciousness. It's a consciousness technology. Is that fair?
Oof. I've never thought of it like that, but I love that. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say hell yes.
It's now officially trademarked. So if you all wanted, like, it's Bill's already got it going
I'm going
now.
to call Keegan. Come on, Keegan, help out. Let's do some more patents.
Do some more patents. But what would you say are the top 3 things that people could do that you go, if you just start doing this today, your feet are going to be more on the ground. You're going to put yourselves in a position to have more nostalgic moments.
I can give you three. Really simple. Really simple. The one is what we spoke about before is doing like the thinking activity. What's going on up here with your roommate? Number two is truly from a day-to-day or week-to-week experience. Like you and I have done the activity inventories. Like I could pull one out of my coach binder here. But like do it for your life. Like is running to the cleaners draining for you? As trivial as it may be, like outsource that. Use your money to go do that. Like understand your energy and write the stuff that write the things that you do down during a day and what drains you, what gives you energy. And the things that drain you, who not how all day. Have someone take care of it, pay someone, because it's going to free you up to have more of your own exponential moments. It sounds simple. You got to change the habit. Number three is when you use the Diane Money app. This is the fun part. We quantify all of your spending every month. So we're going to show you where you're spending your money, and we give you 3 new ideas every month on how to save money. So our AI scans all of your spending habits, and for the most people is overspending on food. The Uber Eats, the things that you can make at home, the coffees. It's habitual. It's easier to do that than spend 20 minutes and make yourself a meal versus just press the go button and order it, but you're wasting so much money when you're already in debt, when you could have a better use for that money. So understand your spending is just doing a full life inventory, your thoughts, things that are giving you energy, and where your money goes, because all those 3 things are aligned more than you know.
Yeah. Imagine like a Venn diagram, right? There, most people think of those all separately, right? But at the end of the day, the apex of the impact of it is all like in that little like intersection.
And that intersection is probably giving you your most stress in your life.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting exercise to do. Um, Bill, I want to ask about you said earlier in our conversation, and I can't remember if you said it was a question or it was a statement, and either one, I took it as both a statement and a question. But you said like when is enough? Like what is enough? Where is enough? And I'm really curious to understand, what do you define as enough? And how do you balance that with, Lee Brower's quote, "The enemy of thriving is arriving."
Yeah. I struggle with that every day. That's like the biggest crux that I have. Like, what is enough? What really is enough? Like, truly, because we worked for this, right? This wasn't given to myself or my wife. Like, we've worked for everything. Like, she manages a 750-person global team. Like, she works her butt off, like, every single day. She's earned it. Like, she wasn't given this, and not like a family member gave that role to her. And like for my company and stuff, like, this wasn't given to me. It's not like I took over my family's business. When you have, the roof over your head, the food on the table, the clothes on your back, truthfully, that's enough. But We are driven in such a way where I want to experience other things. I want to try things. I want to own the car. I want to experience it. We just took a Disney cruise like last week. It was 10 out of 10. Amazing. Just like the family experiences. We were so calm and just like present and having a blast. We have a 3 and a 6-year-old right now. Trust me, they were tired at times and like fussy at times, but that's life. But I think when you use your money to go and do experiences like that, and I want to have a better life for our kids and not have that financial stress, just to give them that freedom to choose what they want to do with their lives. Because I'm not going to force them to do that. I'm not going to say you have to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever the case may be. It's like you follow your soul and your intuition and what your life's calling you to do. I think that's going to be enough. And as long as it's like getting out of your own head and saying, how is this good for me? How can I serve? Or what was I brought to this place to give? I think that's the right question. And I mean, that's a perfect question for you to ask all of the folks at your next coach session. How can you take everything out of your own head? What have you been focusing on for yourself? And how could you change that to make a bigger impact on other people and lead with that? Oh, that's your perfect opening question. You got everyone hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not only that, it's I was just having a conversation yesterday with a podcast guest, and we were talking about this idea of like no agenda. And this kind of ties all into like the enough. And the things that's popped in my head, do you think that like when is enough is a social construct to control or limit? Number one. So I'm curious about that. I'll let you answer that. And then I have a follow-on question to that.
If we're talking about social constructs, enough is when you stop producing, and that's when you start dying. Um, because you have nothing to look forward to. So if you go back to how can I serve or how can I give, it, you can never have enough because it could be your church, it could be your group or a nonprofit or whatever the case may be, or new businesses or new opportunities, or put capital into other businesses to help them grow. All sorts of stuff, right? Um, what is enough? Like I know someone, like you and I both know someone who has a plane. I'm not picking on you, but he was bragging to someone that he spends $3 million a year to run it. You know what I'm talking about? Like why would you waste $3 million when you could invest that? I don't know. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's not where my mind goes. I don't know. I don't know, is that really necessary? And that like goes back to the whole watch thing, or how many vacation homes do you need? Do you need one in London and one in Singapore, whatever? Like, because folks like that. I think you gotta follow your intuition. At the end of the day, it's like what's driving you and not letting other people's opinions and their expectations of you lead you down a wrong path, because that's what Daniel always said. It's like you have to follow your own intuition. And you know what? The more I listen to it, the more he's right.
It preach, preach, brother. That's interesting of the because this is something that I have always like struggled with, and well, not really struggled with, but like sometimes wrestle with. But I think to your point, I think when you start going into the world with no agenda except for to just be wildly helpful, and God, universe rewards you with, like as Dan would say, like the check writers continue to write you larger checks. And what do you do with that? And this, did you ever read the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins?
I haven't, but a lot of my clients have. And what's your thought on that? I'm assuming you've read it.
Yeah, well, I did the Ben read. And this is how I read things. And just as a reminder, our audience is that I read like the first like 20 pages, and then I open it up and I read like the middle 20, 30 pages, and I read the last like 10 pages. And then usually I find like a podcast that of because typically when an author is on a podcast, especially with a really good interviewer, you get a really because the point of the book is to actually instill the thought, to actually spark the actual like question, what does that actually mean? But the thing that I took away from it was that Bill Perkins, who wrote it, is a billionaire, um, and he started to realize that like him leaving it all behind is, and I'm not, he didn't necessarily say this, but I think look at it as going, there's not a lot of return on that because that's about like, hey, how big's my pile? And to your kind of point, I think there's a level of like if it's not just about me, it's about like others. And he creates this idea behind creating memory dividends because he basically states that like, hey, when you do things. So again, the person we're talking about before with like the jet and 3 million. I think if it's just like a well, not so humble brag to be like I'm spent three, not humble at all, is that spend, but it's ego. But I think it probably would have landed better to be able to go, listen, I bought this plane because this allows me to be where my feet need to be at business wise, but more importantly, this allows me to have and create more memories than I previously would have before. And it allows me to do it in a way of like luxury that is really honestly is really rewarding to me in the time and effort. Then I think you're going, oh, God bless. Okay, that makes sense. But I think when you're dropping numbers, I think that you're looking for a reaction.
Just a mask. It's just a mask to show your superiority when you don't really have any.
Yeah. So I'm just curious what you think about the idea of the like the I by the way, I love your construct of enough. And it's like, well, if it's not just about you, but it's about like you just accumulating, but it's about the ability if by you actually having ambition, it's creating better outcomes for other people. And it's therefore that is actually the call to action. And it just happens to be the natural outcome is that you're getting the financial rewards. Like I think that is I'm paraphrasing what you said, is that
You said it perfectly, better than I did. So thank you.
well, I think that's brilliant. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on memory dividends and how would you put that into like your own like buying decision? I'm really curious, like with this watch, uh, like this, like the struggle behind it.
Well, it was primarily when I first started, I made MDIT my first year.
Hmm.
So I did the 80, 100 hours a week, busted my butt, and bought my first Rolex. I got it. I was like, this is cool. That was my reward. I always used them as reward-based tools.
Yeah.
But then it was just got out of hand. It's like, I don't need all this stuff. What's the point of all of this? This is just ridiculous. And from a memory dividend, that's like such a beautiful, beautiful saying. Like that's the title of your next book, by the way. I mean, that would be a great book.
Yeah. I think I'm curious to see if Bill Perkins actually trademarked memory dividends, but
If he hasn't, call Carrie, call Keegan, get it done. Um, but I think that's right where I'm at right now. It's like just being on the Disney cruise with the family was incredible and doing more of that. And if you have the plane or the means or whatever the case may be, would be wonderful. Or have a car to go do that or drive to the place like with your family or with your son or whatever the case may be. That's gold. That's truly gold. That's where the magic happens. And that's where you're taking the context of everyone else and putting it into a fact where we're all going to go and do this, enjoy this together and do these things together. I mean, what's some of the best things that you get to do with your family? I know you just had your fourth child. Like, what are you guys doing right now to create your own memory dividends?
it's what I'm finding is that I think that we all everyone who's listening is creating memory dividends. But I think what I'm finding is that wanting to create a family, like a known articulated culture that we can repeat and replicatable and that it's scalable. And when I say scalable, is that we're trying to create a life that, you know, I like to think of trying to create a life that feels like a sunrise. And what you realize if you actually, so it's one of the reasons why when we bought our first property for our Psalm Stays company, we did it on the East Coast, and that's actually where we had actually babyed it with Benny. So there's multiple sort of like nostalgic, emotional connection to where we did it. But one of the reasons why was that I am a massive fan of sunrises, and I'm equally. I think sunsets are absolutely beautiful, but there's almost more of a different expression. It's sort of like this, uh, uh, like swan song for the day that was versus the potential that is to be. And so when I think about the memory dividends, is that it's about creating culture, and oftentimes we call those traditions, family traditions. So here's an example. We're reliving some of Jenna's like childhood. So she's from Chicago area. So this we appreciate this, Bill. Growing up, they would go downtown during the Thanksgiving break, and they would go down and do the zoo lights at Lincoln Park, which has just continued to expand. And for those who don't know, it's a free park, which is absolutely incredible park that is funded by privately and some public monies, but and funded actually a huge portion by these zoo lights. So you pay a ticket to go in, and it's this huge zoo that has these incredible lights, and it's just incredible atmosphere. And so Jenna has very vivid memories of doing that. That it's very, when I think of what you're trying to create, I don't know if anyone's ever. Did you ever watch The Wonder Years, Bill?
A little bit, vaguely,
Yeah,
yes.
but when you watch The Wonder Years or like Sandlot, right? Like that's what it harkens to is these memories, and I'm finding as an adult we want to return back to that childlike fascination and innocence, like that's kind of like where that as a child that's what's enough. Like if you just have an extra 5 minutes in the day, you were like you felt like you won, right? Like it's like you got your parents. But and then we did that, and then we actually started a couple new traditions and new things. We tried them out, and so we went to play. We all as a family love going to like musicals and plays, and so we went. We did a Christmas a musical, and then because we'd already done our Thanksgiving celebrations, we were like we'd always wanted to try one of these Thanksgiving buffets at a downtown Chicago like restaurant. We've heard all about them, and we did it. And I distinctly remember Thanksgiving night. It's about like our reservation is at 3:45 as this buffet. We get it for like our table for 2 hours, and it has, if you love the traditional fare, it's there, but it has all these other incredible great foods. And I realized about an hour in, and I looked at Jenna, and we're just having like this moment, Bill, like this like incredible present moment. Everyone is smiling. And what was really interesting, it wasn't like just being in a restaurant. There's so many other people there. You felt like you were all connecting on the fact is that today was Thanksgiving, and we all are so grateful, and we're all here to celebrate our families and our lives all together. It was this incredible who not how moment of making something that is like a traditional Thanksgiving into something that was way above. And so those are the things that I think about uh like creating with like our kids, that when I think about like at that moment when we were in that buffet, I was like, this feels enough. And this feels like a sunrise, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm here for this memory dividend of. And it was just rethinking about what does a holiday have to mean? When do you celebrate Thanksgiving, and how can you actually maybe take something that's we have always just done, right? On Thanksgiving, you eat at home, and this is all the things you always do. And we transformed it. And I will tell you, like, that has created a scalable memory that not only pay dividends while we are with our kids in these moments, but this will be something that our kids now will want to go have those same sort of like ripples. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive to do that. It's not about the money.
No. Yeah. It isn't. You know, I think, Bill, how much I'm really curious about this because we're talking about enough. In America, all these movies are about like these rags to riches, underdog stories. Where do you think, though, at least what I've noticed is that people love a success story? Like, for example, Tom Brady, 198th or 199th pick in the NFL draft, comes in relief of Drew Bledsoe, brings him to a Super Bowl. If it just had stopped there, that is probably an American movie story. But then they proceeded to go to another 10 more Super Bowls and win another six. And if you talk to most NFL fans, they they go too much winning. Where do you think that comes from? It's because I kind of think it's this enough conversation.
I think it comes from people not willing to do the things that they need to in their own lives to better themselves. It's pure jealousy. It's just that's where the criticism comes from.
Yeah.
They're not doing the work.
Where else do you think that we see this?
Hmm. I think you see it in your friend circles when you say, "Oh, I did this," or "I got that," or something, and they say, "Oh, that must be nice," or "I'm jealous," and that's just fear. It's just purely a fear gauge inside of them because they're not willing to step out and do the things that they probably could do, or they're letting someone else's expectations hold them back. So I mean, Dan says stay away from, jealous people and envious people because that's purely fear-based. It's all negative energy. When you look at what Tom Brady does or did, they all built themselves up together. It takes, 22 people or 53 people on the team to do this, and the coaches and the training staff, et cetera, et cetera. It's not him, but his energy probably led that. And the coaches, there was pure alignment there. When you don't have alignment in your circles, that's when it's time to branch out and let go of those people. And there's magic in that. Just letting people who don't belong. It's just, I'm sure you've had to do that multiple times in your life too.
Yeah, I have both personally and professionally. And, it was talking with a friend of mine today who is going through a personal matter. And there's, I think it's Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza said this. He goes, relationships don't end, they just complete. And I thought that's just such a beautiful reframing and deleveraging the emotion behind an end. Right? I was like, man, Joe Dispenza, keep it coming. And I think back, we are so afraid, I think, of making decisions. I mean, because if we go back to what we've been talking about, it's an energy game, right? So humans are just like you're a collection of energy. I'm a collection of energy. Beth, who is with it in the green room, she's a collection of energy, right? We're all just energy transporters, and quite frankly, I think the thing that I think that most people don't get, we're not. It's not all equal. It's not all equal, and you can tune your engine to like be more receptive to giving, creating, producing, and harvesting energy. But I think that relationships is probably one of the most underlooked balance sheets in people's lives. Because to your point, if you did an active inventory on your relationships and did an audit, you actually audited your books. It's like how many people would be truly grateful for your like full of gratitude and excitement for like your successes or your sort of like wins.
Yeah, very few. It gets to be
Yeah.
very few because they don't want to do the work themselves. I've already seen it. You have too. We all have, everyone listening to this. It could be something as trivial as getting a new pair of shoes. Everyone goes through it, but you just have to be aware. And I think your body knows, it's just, are you listening to it or not?
Yeah, it really is. What would you what are your experiences with letting go and basically when you do an audit of your net worth?
I think the biggest thing is from a value standpoint and not monetarily. It's the energy standpoint. When you talk to someone, do they give you energy or does it take it away from you? And I think if you use that as the construct, that's your guide. And that's true for being in groups, or like entrepreneurial groups. I mean, is there energy there? Is it the right people? Is it the right room? And if it's not, you don't have to be there. No one's forcing you to. That's the easiest way to look at that then.
Yeah,
It's simple
I
too.
like it. Yeah. But you know what I love about the word simple is it's like an oxymoron, right? Because the things that have been most effective in my life are the simplest ones, but for whatever reason, they seem so incredibly hard. Like, as soon as someone and I realize how simple it is, I realize actually the arduous task ahead because it's going to require showing up consistently. It's going to require like building system, actually probably excavating complexity. I mean, which means probably seeing either relationships complete, seeing projects, end, uh, seeing identities either have to realign or die. I think sometimes things just have to, in simplicity, some things just have to die to be actually reborn.
Amen. All day, every day, and twice on Sundays, man. Of course, that's the hard part. You know what you need to do, but doing the work is the hard part. It's simple in theory, but the execution is where the gold is. That's when you find yourself. Is it easy to let go of friends who you had for 20 years? No. Is it easy to end the relationship that's not working? No. It's going to be messy. Is it easy to make big changes in your financial life to get you to where you potentially could be? No, of course not. But that's why there's people who get ahead and there's people who don't. It just anyone can get ahead. Anyone can do it. Just know you're already there and be willing to take the steps to do it.
I love that. I think that what you just said was so powerful. You're already there. Yeah. Going back to like Dan's thing, like just stop trying to be there, just be here and expand from here. And the thing I always tell my groups and my individual clients that I coach is that the perfect version of you already exists. So stop being like there. Just be here. And it's in the actual internal looking, which is what you've already talked about, like, this auditing, this activity inventory of your life, the awareness, I think is one of the most powerful game changing things. And by the way, it's 100% free. That's a that's the thing that I think that Bill that boggles my mind is that people look for things that cost money when the thing that is the most exponential force multiplier is it's already here. Yep, it's already here. Well, Bill, I have loved having you on here today. What a beautiful conversation. I just super appreciate how just your experiences and especially having a front row seat to so many people, from people who are just starting off financially to people who are like 10, like 9, 10 figure type number people. And at the end of the day, the shoes we put on are the same. The struggles that we put on are the same. And I really appreciate you sharing just like some of your own journey of how you finding not happiness, but fulfillment. And I want to thank you for being here. If people want to find more about you, they go, man, I want a technology thing in my life that allows me to align my money or to like have some more like, quite frankly, conscious calculator for your money. Like where do they go to find you? Where can they follow if you on your socials?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the best way to go is to dianemoney.com. Yep, it's named after my mom who passed away a few years ago. So this is like an honor to her as well. And the beautiful thing about how we've upgraded everything is you pay what you think the technology is worth. So you choose. I mean, there's subscriptions that you can do, but if you're struggling right now, you could pay $1 a month and get the service done for you and really figure out a path to get out of debt. And I truly believe that's what I've been called to do. It's not to help people, but to serve. Like Daniel White's really challenged me on that. It's like not solving everyone's problems. It's just, here's a path forward. It's up to you to choose it. It's not up to me. It's here. The technology is here. It works beautifully. Just take the action. You have nothing to lose.
Come on. That's beautiful. What a great homage and memory dividend of you putting your mom as an opportunity to create impact and ripple. That's beautiful. Before we go, Bill, one of the things I like to do with my guests is allow them to leave the last thought, call to action, question, quote, ripple. What would you have our audience leave with today?
I would ask you to think about what's one thing that you could let go from your life to help you thrive. Like, what's the one thing that you know that you can eliminate from your life to simplify it, give you order, and just give you peace? Because you can have peace. It's already here. You choose it in this moment. But if something's not allowing that, are you going to let it go? It's a challenge. Are you going to let it go?
I love that. Are you going to let it go? Bill, thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing so generously and loved having you on. And what a great conversation.
You're amazing. So grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. A big thanks to Elation Lab for the production and creative design. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep listening for more Max Life.